my name is Ralf. I'm with Dexibell. Today here with my friends from Kraft Music, and we're gonna have a look into the Vivo S10 digital stage piano. In this video, I'm gonna show you some examples. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the features, and of course you will hear some great music. With the Vivo S10, we have taken our T2L engine to the next level. This means we have doubled the memory, we have a higher CPU speed, we have separate outs so that you might be able to route the organ sound to a separate out in case you would like to connect a real Leslie on stage, and all the rest goes still to front of house. Then we have 3 effects per part. This makes up to 12 independent effects plus the master EQ and the master reverb. The Vivo S10 is coming with an 88 hybrid wood graded hammer action keyboard that is also aftertouch capable. This action is giving me a very authentic piano feel. It's able to do all the nuances of my playing, is responding very authentically, and it's giving me a fantastic musical feel playing this instrument. As a second instrument in the S10 line, we do have the S10L. This instrument is coming with a synth action, 76 notes, and this brings down the weight of the instrument to around 24-25 pounds. All Dexibell stage pianos can also be used as MIDI master controllers. So we would have 4 independent zones doing this job. And of course, we can also use the knobs and the motorized draw faders for sending out MIDI controller data, which is freely assignable to those 4 zones. You can say which controller is driving what, etc., etc. And these settings can be different for each user memory you create. Then on top of that, we can stack or separate the 4 internal zones so that we can have up to 8 zones in real time on our instruments. Dexibell's T2L engine is running on 48 kilohertz and 24-bit and allows you to access several components of each sound. Let me give you an example, playing the USA Platinum grand piano sound and now changing in real time the level of hammer noise, key off noise, etc. Let's have a look in that. Then we have the key off noise, the damper noise, and even the damper noise is dynamic. You push the damper pedal softly, you don't hear a lot of that damper noise, you hit it and here you go. Then there's the string resonance. This is probably one of the most important parameters in the T2L engine for the acoustic pianos because this defines the interaction between the played notes. And this is exactly what would happen in an acoustic instrument. When you play some notes, they're cross-referencing to each other. Let me give you an example. I'm now playing this low C-sharp note. I'm holding it with the sostenuto pedal. That would be the middle pedal on the grand piano. And now everything I'm doing is resonating with those two opened strings. And I can increase or decrease the level of this resonance. Then we do have the damper resonance. The upper 18 notes on the grand piano are without any damper. And this is actually how you can hear that. And that's not a reverb. That's really what's happening in an acoustic instrument. Also, the staccato resonance defines the behavior in the acoustic piano if you're playing staccato notes. And again, this is totally without reverb. This is what we try to do with our Dexibell T2L engine, getting as close as possible to the sound and behavior of an acoustic piano. Now let's call the Wurli piano, and I'd like to dive into the T2L parameters of this sound. Obviously, we also have the hammer noise, but this time the components, of course, are derived from the electric piano, the Wurlitzer. So talking about the hammer noise. That's probably a little bit too much. Then we have the key off noise. And this is creating, if you really crank that up, it's creating that typical rumble that you would experience sitting in front of the original. Then we have the damper noise. And a very nice parameter that we call cabinet resonance. Again, I'm not playing the sound with a reverb, so if I'm playing staccato, the sound is dry. Now let me crank up the cabinet resonance. And that would be the typical sound/noise experience you would make sitting in front of the Wurlitzer piano. Then to spice up that sound, I would use some effects. So let's dive into that. First effect is a typical tremolo, and by default, we always try to put the two most significant parameters to these knobs so that you are able to tweak the sound in real time while you're playing. So here we have the intensity of the tremolo. And of course, the speed. Then as a second effect, I'd like to use the overdrive, which is kind of giving you an amp simulation. And you can already hear it's getting that crunchy vibe to it. And of course, you can dive in deeper and adjust and tweak the overdrive to your taste. Then, as a third effect, because the instrument has 3 independent effects for each of the 4 parts. I might be using let me see, a wah-wah, which is now set to an automatic kind of LFO wah-wah. So in this example, I'm playing with the wah-wah clavinet. In the T2L engine, you can of course also control the hammer noise and the release noise. That's probably a little bit too much. And if you would prefer to have the wah-wah controlled by the second expression pedal that I connected to the instrument, that's also possible. In this next example, I'd like to use a massive, very long reverb. So starting with a pure sound without any reverb. The effects I have been using so far is a vibrato, an overdrive, and a chorus. And now, let's have some really long reverb. In this next example, I'm playing with several synth sounds. I'm having 3 split zones here. There is the middle zone, and I'm holding this chord with the assignable switch, and that's kind of a virtual damper function that always replays and holds the last notes I play. This gives me a hand free. Of course, I have to push the expression pedal for the other 2 zones. So here I'm having a bass sound, bass synth, basically. I can filter this one. With this filter, I'm doing the middle sound here. Okay, and then there's the melody sound, which gets an extra filter. And as you just could see, our keyboard is doing aftertouch. So you can control the vibrato by just pressing down a little harder. With this next piece of music, I would like to play with the beautiful orchestral sounds that we have at Dexibell. In the first patch I'm using, there's the English horn. And this sound is layered with strings, and the strings, I can bring them in with the expression pedal. And there's a beautiful function that is called the enhancer. If I press the enhancer, the strings will get bigger voicings like you would do in a string arrangement. Although I'm only playing kind of narrow voicings, you hear really big voicings. So let me play first without. And now with the enhancer. Then in the next patch I'm using in this musical example, I'm layering a tuba, French horns and strings. Then I have another string sound, 1 octave up, to make it more rich, more orchestral. And then I'm holding this sound with the damper pedal and I'm changing patches. At Dexibell we have seamless patch change, so you don't have the experience of cutting off the notes, of cutting the reverb tail, no matter how many times you change these patches. So I'm holding the strings, the horns, the tuba, I'm changing to a harp, making that glissando thing, and then I'm changing to a piano. And also our instruments have unlimited polyphony, so that you don't experience some notes being just released or cut off. Our instruments are also Font compatible, so you'll find a lot of sounds on the internet, or you are able to create your own sounds, for example, using the Polyphone sound font editor that is free of charge, downloadable on the internet. So I created a loop in my DAW at home in the studio that I'm running now. I can filter this with the internal filtering effect, of course. You hear this massive trance synth sound. Let me show you how I did that. This is really powerful using these effects, because now it's a pure sound, raw sound without any effects. Then we have a stereo delay. We have a long tail reverb. And now we add the spice to the soup, so to speak, with the compressor. And this gives you that typical, really massive trance sound with the synth and the reverb. In this next example, I would like to create a patch that has 4 layered sounds: acoustic piano, electric piano, synth pad, and a bass sound. Let's start with the bass sound, and here I'm using the Pop Electric Bass from the Bass Collection. Going into the T2L of the bass sound gives you parameters such as off noise. That's a little bit too much. Then the amp noise. Also a little bit too much now. The key noise, thumping. And the string noise. Let's stay here. Then the slow analog, a beautiful pad sound. Here, let's see what effects I'm using. That's the equalizer, a reverb, and a cut filter. Let's make it really soft in the beginning. In the T2L, we can also modify the attack, the cutoff, the resonance, and the release of the sound. And also you see and hear, the bass is now only playing the lowest note that I'm playing on the keyboard to emphasize the root of the chord. And I'm bringing in and out the pad with the expression pedal. Then let's layer on top of that the beautiful Bell Chorus Platinum sound. What effects am I using? A chorus, an EQ, and the third effect is on through. I could use another reverb, a delay, or whatever I would like to have here. Then layering the fourth sound, that's the Japan Reverb Platinum Grand. Let's listen for this solo for a moment. Bringing in the Rhodes. The synth pad. Filtering it in. And then having the pedal, the bass on the pedal part. Here we go. On top of the piano and synth and orchestral sounds, we do have the organ engine in the Vivo S10 and of course also in the Vivo S10L. For this we feature motorized draw faders. Give you an example here. If I'm tweaking or switching between sounds, you can see the draw faders are moving to exactly the position where they should be. So the big advantage of the motorized faders is you see what you hear. So if I'm going from main to the lower part, I see the drawbar settings on the lower and on the pedal. Going back to main, going to the mixing board, I see the settings of the mixing board. For example, let me crank that up a little. Now there's no reverb. I can bring in the reverb just using the reverb send for the organ sound on the mixing board. So again, I'm seeing what I'm hearing. Going back here to the drawbar settings. Here we go, and let me recall that patch. Then we have that typical vibrato. This would be a V3. We of course have the C3, V3, C2, V2, C1, V1. That sound is a little bit like 50s probably, with a spinet organ sound, if that makes any sense. So typical 50s. Inside the T2L editor for the organ sound, you would find parameters as leakage, hum noise, that's the 60 cycles typical hum noise that these instruments tend to produce. Then we have click on and click off. Then we have parameters for the rotary speaker, such as the speed for the tweeter, speed for the horn, ramp up time, going down time, going slow time. So all the parameters that you would need for customizing your personal or preferred organ sound. Then on top of that, we have the effect section here. There is the overdrive. Let's cut the overdrive for a second. Then the rotary speaker. Assign my switch pedal to rotary speaker fast and slow. And then there's the percussion, and I can have the percussion on the right side or on the left side. Now it's on the left side, which kind of emulates the double manual playing with your left hand on the upper keyboard. Now let me talk about the morphing function for the drawbar sounds. I push and hold this button. I can see on the screen morphing is set to pedal. This means the additional expression pedal that I connected will drive this function now. And there's a from and a to. From means the pedal is all the way back. To means the pedal is all the way pushed down. And you can already see the drawbars are morphing between those two settings. Now to program those settings is really easy. You go into the from position, you do your setting here on the panel, and then you move the pedal all the way down to the to position. Let's do all in here or all out, no matter. And you see, now it's between those two positions, going back and forth depending on the position of your expression pedal. So this gives you a hand-free possibility. Not only by volume expression, but also by pulling out all the stops. All Dexibell instruments can be connected to macOS or iOS devices with one single USB cable. So audio and MIDI is going to be transferred in both directions on this one cable. In this example, I'm combining internal sounds with external sounds, speaking sounds that come from the iPad. So 3 sounds are coming from the internal sound engine. And then there's the MIDI master keyboard zone driving the trumpet. In this example, I'm using an arpeggiator coming from the iPad. I MIDI learned the expression pedal to this plugin and also the filter tweaking. So now I'm using these knobs to drive the filter tweaking of the sound coming from the iPad. And on top of that, I want to play with a beautiful piano sound. So this is the Dexibell Vivo S10 stage piano. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact Kraft Music. Once again, my name is Ralf. Thank you for watching.